Fast Forward Productions. The women are speaking.
All right. Hi, guys. Welcome back to The Unfiltered Entrepreneur. I'm your host, Ashley Pollard, and I am fangirling today. I am losing it. I have Jess from Jess Creatives here. I'm so excited for you guys to meet her. I just met her 4 milliseconds ago, but I'm already obsessed with her. And the reason that I'm having Jess today on the podcast is because Inside the Doers, somebody shared this insane research that she did, this data collection, these analytics that she found about the online space. And we have been fangirling in the Doers Club, talking about what this means for email, what it means for social, what it means for CRM, for project management, what it means for pricing, what it means for educating your audience, what it means for marketing. It's such a gold mine. We are obsessed. Jess, welcome to the podcast. I have a million things I want to talk about with you.
Well, thank you for having me. And I just want to say, I'm glad that you are nerding out about this because I have been just like geeking out about this information for like 2 weeks because I was watching all the like information come in and just watching the trends. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to share this. And when I posted it, I was like, I feel like I'm geeking out about this and people are going to be like, cool. And I'm like blown away by how much people are loving it and like the insights that they're getting from it. So when you were like, please come talk about it, I was like, absolutely, because I need to talk to somebody about this.
I'm a math girl, and I think that's why a lot of people like to come inside the Doers Club or to hire me privately is because like, I'm always going to come back to math. I'm always going to come back to financials and analytics. And I think what's really interesting is that 200 is a tough market size to capture, in my opinion, and I have some questions about that market size. Now, granted, it's not like 200,000 or 2,000 or stuff like that, but like the industry is small and big at the same time. That 200 to me is a great reflection of generally what's going on, right? And so I do want to talk about some of the findings, but I have some questions. So you probably have this in the report. And if people haven't dove into the report, tell them a little bit about the amalgamating of the data. Like, how did we mine for it? What was that process like? How long did that take you? I'm just like, I want to know everything. I'm so excited.
So it's funny that you say that because actually my goal originally when I put this out was like, I want to have 1,000 answers. I was like, I want to get 1,000 people. And within a week, I was like, okay, so maybe 1,000 was a lofty goal. I was like, okay, maybe like 500. Maybe I could do 500. And then a few days later, I was like, I'm pulling teeth to get to 200. And I honestly was like, are people going to be like, this is only 200 people? This is not a good. So I'm glad that you said that because I was like, I feel like this is a good chunk of people.
Yeah, I feel 100 would be a good chunk of people. I mean, 75. Like, the thing is, we may not have the same audiences. I may have a different audience. I may say, I don't care about that study. I'm going to use that to reach the people who weren't covered in that study. Or like there's a million ways to view it. But to me, 200, I think, is still a great sample size. It's way better than mine. You know what I mean? Mine is like what are the 5 people I've talked to this week? Do you know what I
mean? Yeah. So yeah, I did a very basic, simple Google form. It was anonymous because I knew I needed to keep it anonymous. People are more likely to share, which my husband, he's not in business, but of course I just tell him about this. He's like, you don't know who these people are? And I was like, no, because otherwise I know people wouldn't have participated. And I just shared it across email, across social. I had friends share it, email it to their list. And like, I honestly think my number one place that I got the most interaction was Threads. I have a much larger following on Instagram and a bigger email list than I do Threads, but Threads was like sharing it. Oh, I can't wait to see this. I had so many people on Threads who were like, please let us know when the data is ready.
I've been so loud about Threads. I'm so glad you said that. I've been telling people like, you guys are sleeping on it. Sleeping on Threads.
Yeah. It took about, I think it was 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. So it wasn't even out there.
Your email list through social media. Were these all people who were already in your space?
No, I had several people because I had friends sharing it.
Oh, right. You said that, yeah.
Honestly, some of the people on Threads that I don't know who they are, that like they were filling it out. So it's not people.
So what you're saying was not about the results. That was about the amalgamation of the data.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. So I let it run for like 2 weeks. I really was like,
I'm
impatient.
I was like, I wonder if this was over like 6 months. Like 202 weeks is amazing.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think some people probably got annoyed at how often I was like, please share this. I need, like, the last like 3 days, I was like, I need 17 more people. I need 12 people. I need 5 people. I was like, come on, guys. And then I also had it very prominently highlighted at the top of my website because I get a lot of like random Pinterest traffic, SEO traffic. And so I was like, any business owner who's stumbling upon me from Pinterest or Google, then I can get them to fill it out potentially. So yeah. And then Google Forms made it super easy because I just did all multiple choice, except for a few questions had the other option. So people would put in like their own thing. And it made it super easy to just it gave me percentages and I broke that down. And then I actually used ChatGPT to help me kind of cross
Smart.
reference.
Yeah. Like,
And
where are the
I even
synergies? Where are the
asked,
overlaps? Like, what is
yes,
the data telling us?
yeah, yes. And I even asked it, like, what are some other things that you think I should like be cross-referencing? And some of it was like, it was wrong because it was telling me like, oh, you should inquire people about their blah, blah. And I'm like, no, I'm saying like,
Yeah,
in
you're
this
like, you're not
data,
understanding my
like,
question.
please listen to what I'm
Listen as
asking.
a human
But
to what
I
I'm
was
saying.
yes. But I just downloaded the report from the Excel file, the CSV file, and uploaded it to ChatGPT. And I was like, compare this column with this column. What trends do you see? And then I double checked, like kind of fact checked to make sure the data it was saying was correct. But in the results, you see that I will like, hey, here's the information from what you guys answered, but here's some other interesting tidbits of, oh, this segment of people did XYZ and this shows this, that like that's from the cross-referencing. So,
now I want to dive into some of these analytics. I think that one of the reasons that this really took off as a conversation inside of my membership, the Doers Club, is that we were shocked. I think it was very shocking. I don't think any of it was predictable, to be honest. Like, reading through it does not reflect the marketing we see. It does not reflect what we think is the norm. And I'm going to, dive into some of these. I have it pulled up. And so if you see me like looking away, it's because I'm also going to be referencing
same.
the
I
report.
do too.
But,
Yeah.
I think one of the things that we collectively, and I hate to speak on the behalf of the group, but I'm here for them, and I think that one thing that we kind of all resonated with was this idea that people are making a lot less money than they say they are, or that we think people are. Their teams are very small, and the businesses are way less buttoned up than we had expected. So I think that all of us kind of thought like everybody has everything. How do we fit in anymore? And the truth is, people are so bare bones, like so much more bare bones than we had expected in what I deem is a very exciting way. I'm wondering how you felt about that as like a generalization.
Oh, yes, I agree because I feel like every time I hop on social, especially like Instagram Reels, there's another reel of like, I made 6 figures selling this and I make whatever and I sold this book and now I have $1 million and like, whatever. Well, I recognize in the moment that a lot of those are probably like stretching the truth or they're not showing the full picture. The number one stat that blows me away is how little people are making. And my thought is, with inflation and the state of the economy right now, like, how is this doable? How is this sustainable for people? And I recognize people live in lower cost of living areas. People don't have families or pets, whatever. But I mean, I was like trying to think, I'm like, okay, so if I was single, still living here, didn't have my daughter, like, would I be okay still making the same amount of money? But then I was like, could I afford to live on $50,000 without, being single? Like if I was in this different situation, and I don't know that I would be able to.
As someone who lives on $50,000, I can tell you that and single with no kids and no pets, I can, but it's a stretch. And I'm running 2 or 3 businesses that together are making well over $1 million. But the thing is, I'm reinvesting almost all of it. And I chose to live in an inexpensive city where I could have a nice place for very little. And I want to take advantage of the things that I do have as advantages, which is like, I don't have a family yet, or maybe will, and like, so for me, I was like, I'm going to just capitalize on that while I can. But like, I can't imagine how mothers are doing it. I can't imagine how people are doing it who are breadwinners for other people. It's like in this economy, it's like truly in this economy, like, oh man.
I know.
So that's kind of what instigated it, was your curiosity around like, is this true? Are we being honest about what we're saying is working?
So I did the survey because I was like, I feel like there's a lot of talk right now. I don't know if you're seeing the same talk
I'm seeing it, and
online,
I'm
especially
annoyed
on
by all
Threads.
of it. I'm like anticipating what you're going to say. I don't know what you're going to say, but I am a little bit annoyed by like the Stripe screenshots and the like how to make 100K in a month. And I'm like, enough.
So it was partly that, but it was also, I was curious just because where I was really going to go with that is everyone's saying like things feel different in business right now. And like, what is it that's happening? While I don't necessarily know if the answers in the survey give us the answer to that question, I was just like, what is going on? Like, where are we right now? And I also wanted to just share more transparency about what does our business look like? What does our pay look like? Because again, I think we sometimes can like scoot around that answer, and or we like buffer the numbers, or we just don't share.
Or yeah, you say like, as a
And
business owner, as an owner of $1 million. That's why I don't say like our business is gross $1 million, is because I'm like, that doesn't mean anything. You know what I mean? Like, that pays for the team, that pays for exciting things we're doing. We talk take home pay. You're going to be like, oh, I make more than you. You know what I mean?
yeah.
I think what's so fascinating too about this, I do have my own thoughts. I have some thoughts about like where the industry's going. I think a lot of people boomed in 2020 or started in 2020. I think that we saw a lot of people learning in 2020 and then saying, I'm sick of learning. And then we saw a massive take it over, done for you surge. A lot of people got branding, they got websites, and then people didn't know how to grow the business. That's when consulting and coaching really took off in a one-on-one capacity. And then I think that people just kind of were like, I think I have to figure this out for myself. And I think there's a lot of like, okay, how do I want to grow this? What are my priorities? And I think we're just on a spending hold. I think there's a little bit of like, what do I want to DIY? What do I want to do for myself? A lot of testing things, a lot of like come to Jesus moments. I do see it kind of turning around right now, where spending was like very flat, especially for many people in the doers. We're all starting to see things like start to pick back up a little bit. I think that hopefully we're getting better educated decisions where people are saying, okay, I do know what I need, and I do understand why you charge that much, and I do understand how that's going to affect my business. I understand what it's going to take of me. I think we had some uneducated decision makers for quite some time, which is fine. I think, we were all kind of new to entrepreneurship, but that's kind of been my perspective. I'm curious if you have thoughts on that.
Yes, I've been in business. This is my 13th year.
Wow.
So
yeah.
I've seen a lot of waves of business, and I definitely agree. There was a lot of learning in 2020 going on, and then a big push for like the VIP days and the done for you. That's my whole business, is done for you. And so I think people are becoming more savvy. I think there's been a lot of people who've been burnt by bad investments, coaches, courses, like whatever. And so, like you said, I think I'm going to figure this out on my own. And I also think there's a lot of people who were like, okay, I need a team and I need this and I need all these tools, which we'll talk about that. But I do think there are some people who are like, actually, I just want to simplify. Like, maybe I don't want a whole agency of people to help my clients.
That, and also like, I think that there was a lot of like, you need a trademark and you need an OBM and you need a VA and you need social and you need Pinterest and you need email and you need CRM and you need project management. And I think a lot of people are like, okay, generally yes, but I get to pick which one of those I'm going to prioritize right now. And so when people are kind of making those decisions, I think they're like cutting team members, hiring different team members, doing so in a very slow capacity. And honestly, I think that's great for everybody. I do think it's a tough time for a lot of solo entrepreneurs, especially if they started in the COVID boom. But to me, I think that's just going to be great for everyone who sticks around. We're going to see it swing back up, and that's what I'm excited about. Let's dive into this report. So some of the really interesting things here, it looks like a pretty good mix. Actually, some of these things don't have a pretty good mix. Some of these things shockingly have like a very large takeover of numbers. So the majority of people were service-based businesses or digital products that made up, pretty much like 83% of the type of business. So pretty much everybody were like online entrepreneurs, solopreneurs in some capacity. The shocking part for me was 5 to 10 years. And I was like, wow, I thought I was really talking to some new entrepreneurs, which maybe I still am. Like, that's where we have to be clear about our own audiences. But a pretty good split between 1 to 10 years. But the majority of people in that 5 to 10 year realm, and then secondary to the 3 to 5 years. So people have been in business is kind of what the report could suggest.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the piece of having the more savvy people being more hesitant about investing. I think we need more touch points than we've needed before, because the longer we're in business, the more we're like, nope, this person is not who they say they are.
Yeah.
Like they're using this type of language. I think this is all fake.
The next one is like the most shocking for me. Number of employees, 84% said just me. So I have a question about this. 84% said just me. And I'm curious about the question that was asked, because was it about employees or was it about team members?
They said employees specifically.
Yeah, I'm wondering there, because I'm like, you cannot tell me 84% of the people who took this were solopreneurs. That's fascinating.
Yeah, which I don't. So for perspective, I don't have any employees, and I only have 3 very, very part-time contractors. Like I'm talking like 10 hours a month contractors, which I felt like I was maybe alone in that, or like in the more rare bucket. So when I saw this, I was like,
yeah, that's fascinating.
So a lot of people are like me.
Well, and this is where we can start these takeaways. For me, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have so much education I can do on team building. And like, if it's appropriate, right? Like we also talk a little bit about maybe you don't hire a team, maybe you hire a chef to make you your meals. Maybe, a personal trainer to get you out of bed and do a workout in the morning. Like you don't have to hire in your business. That shocked me. The solopreneur aspect of things. What does that number kind of tell you?
The employees or the contractors?
Well, like the number. Oh, there is contractors. Okay, I see. Okay.
I made sure in the questionnaire, like under the employee section, I said contractors are a separate question.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Like so that people knew that when they answered.
But still 50%. Okay, so nobody has employees. That to me, I do understand that. I think a lot of agencies have employees, and maybe that's different. But okay, so that makes sense for employees, but none have contractors. Like 52% don't have any contractors. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Not in a bad way. And I want everyone to know I'm not judging. It's when I say it's crazy,
no.
So different than what I expected.
Yes, agreed. I'm like, how are you like?
I needed to hire a right away. I was like uploading all these videos alone.
Yeah, I think back to when I didn't have contractors, and I'm like, it was exhausting. And so underneath this, 46% do not have any employees or any contractors, because there's some who don't have employees but have contractors. But 46, like almost half of the businesses don't have any help, and that's the part that I'm like,
do we have to talk about hiring?
What?
Do I have to give you permission to like hire a VA? Can I quantify out the importance of hiring a VA for you? Wow, that is just shocking. So you do have a note here, like keep in mind everything after this represents almost half of these people have no support, which is a really good call out as we move down this. We're going to annual business gross revenue. If you guys are following along, click the link in the show notes. You can follow along with this because I'm just going right down the same report.
You can scroll with us.
So this less than 50,000. So the annual gross revenue, it looks like there's a decent split between 50 to 300,000. It's kind of interesting. Like less than 50,000 is a pretty high number. I mean, I would have thought maybe like 70,000, 80, but less than 50 is pretty shocking too. I guess if you don't have a team, it is a little bit more doable. But to your point, like that's hard because even with less than 50,000, still taxes.
It is hard. Yeah, and a lot of taxes.
Yeah.
That is a lot of the people who are in business for 5 to 10 years. Right. Because I compared that because I was like, well, okay, so is this?
It says that
the people who've only been in business.
Wow. So a lot of people that have been in business for a long time have not been able to break past that $50,000 threshold. Interesting.
Yeah. I actually had someone I was talking to, and she said well, some of us, prefer more ease and like free time in our schedule, and we're not concerned about like chasing revenue, and like fancy, like I don't do fancy I don't do fancy things either. Like like I'm very basic, but you could like raise your prices a little
Totally.
bit.
Right,
You
right.
could do
There's like add-ons that you
you
could do where it's like a way to up-level the service. There's a digital product you might be able to offer. I mean, not for everybody, but there's stuff like that. Also but like I said, a pretty decent split, like 25% of 50 to 100,000, 27% of 100 to 300,000. I think the 300,000 is also kind of shocking because I'm like, that has to be the other 50% of people that have a team. I mean, it's just gotta be.
It has to be. So that was so surprising. And based on the feedback that I've heard on like Instagram and Threads, that stat about the pay is the most surprising, which to me speaks to how much we are listening to the big influencers, the big gurus talking about like their $1 million businesses. Maybe that's distorting our perception and being like, oh, like everyone else is making all this money. Maybe not everyone's making as much as Amy Porterfield, but it just feels like everyone else is making all this money when, well, actually they're not.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting too, because I wonder, I know I'm skipping ahead a bit. I did remember that like one of the biggest call outs, and I'm not there, so I might be getting it wrong, but like was feeling burnt out. And it's like, well, no shit. If you're making like less than six figures, which is the threshold for success on the online business space, and all these people now have moved the goalpost from six figures to seven figures, of course there's going to be burnout. We're left with this, oh my God, I should be making more than I am. And of course there's going to be this dissonance between where you think you're supposed to be and where you are. It's tough.
Yeah, it is really tough. And I like personally, this might not be the case for everybody, but for me personally, I felt more stretched and more burnout when I was making just over 100,000 compared to last year I made just over 200,000. And like every 3 weeks I take a week off. So like I'm like I have plenty of free time. I have flexibility in my schedule. So like again, I know there's a lot of different family situations and setups and ways, but I think it's also a misconception that, well, if I'm making X amount of money, I have to work even more or have to be just chaos and have a huge team and everything. Like that doesn't have to be the case.
And on top of that, like maybe we need to level set expectations a bit, It's pretty fascinating. The next one pretty much mirrors that number where how much are people paying themselves, and it almost perfectly matches until you get into the higher ones. People aren't really paying themselves as much as the business is making, which is. But then we get into technology, and this is where I also was kind of fascinated, especially you're a website designer and SEO business, as I understand, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yes.
For you, was it interesting? What do you primarily build on?
So I do mostly WordPress and Squarespace. I don't think I've ever had a single inquiry want to use Show It.
Oh, interesting.
And since I really cater to service businesses, I never hear Shopify because it's just not in my. I do SEO for Shopify, but I don't do like design in Shopify. And then I'm very anti-Wix.
I'm so anti-Wix.
People know not to.
I'm so anti-Wix.
Ask me about Wix. So this was, to me, not very surprising.
I think I commented on your Wix post. Was it you? Or maybe it was someone else where I was like,
Yes, it was me.
You like randomly came across my Reels page where you were talking shit on Wix, and I'm like, go off, girl. And so I commented like, I'm so loud about this. I just put that together. I didn't realize it.
That's me.
Yeah,
that's me. And there's always people who fight back up against that.
I'm very anti-Wix myself. But yeah, I mean, I think that in the doers, we have a lot of website designers. We have a lot of social media managers. We have some operations managers, some tech support type of things. A decent amount of web designers though, and we have so much talk about Show It. So I also think this is interesting. There's a few takeaways that could live here, and this is where interpretation comes into play. Like this could mean maybe website designers who do primarily work on Show It need to prove the benefit of it still, even though they think they've belabored that point. maybe if it's WordPress and Squarespace, you talk about the way that you specialize in that in case you want to stay on your platform. So there's a million ways to actually take this, but were you surprised by this or not really?
Not really. If anything, the only thing I was maybe surprised was how close Showit was in popularity to Squarespace. I didn't realize it was as popular as it was. So, but for me, because most of my clients choose WordPress nowadays. So I think I'd be more shocked if something else had been number one.
Yeah.
Right? I'd have been like,
we definitely got to do the marketing.
We're not doing this.
Yeah. We're moving you over. Do like a plan to like get the anti-Wix movement project or something where it's like, let's get you onto a better platform. So here we have email marketing platform used. Highest is ConvertKit. I'm on ConvertKit. I like it a lot. I'm shocked Flowdesk wasn't higher. I mean, it's second, but like I thought it would have been like 60%. I thought Flowdesk like owned the market in that way.
So I don't think it owns the market, but I thought it would be like a tie between, I mean, it is pretty close. So, I mean, like I was kind of surprised by that. I was actually happy to see that Flowdesk was, I don't love Flowdesk, but that's a different topic. But I'm glad that it's so much higher than MailChimp.
Oh my God, I hate MailChimp more than anything. I also am happy to see that Kajabi is lower because I don't think that I always tell people like your shampoo and conditioner shouldn't come in the same bottle. Like stop doing everything on Kajabi. So that I don't think I'm necessarily surprised by this. I did think Flowdesk would be, I thought it would have been at least 40. So that was kind of interesting. I liked that you broke it out like email platforms by industry. So a lot of digital products are on ConvertKit and Flowdesk. A lot of service-based are on ConvertKit or Flowdesk. So it sounds like generally in those two spaces, which is kind of like the people I cater to, it's ConvertKit or Flowdesk. And to me, it's kind of like, do you want pretty or do you want the analytics? And we're data people. That's why we don't like Flowdesk.
Yes, 100%. I'm like, please show me all the data. That's what I want.
Now, this is the next one that we geeked out over is the CRM platform used. I don't use one. Now, I'm anti-Dubsado, anti-Honeybook. I don't think there is a good CRM out there. I use Dubsado kind of like because it's easy. I'm on there already. I might as well just keep using it. I've told people far and wide, if I were to do things over, I would just use DocuSign and Stripe invoices. I think it's just easier that way. But the automations are nice, but that 50% almost aren't using one is really interesting.
Yeah, and almost half of those people who said they're not using one are in the service-based industry. Because I was like, well, is this the product people all just saying they don't use one? You know,
the number might actually be higher because if you were to just look at service, it's like 50% it's probably even like a bit higher because it's diluted by product businesses too a bit.
Yeah. So I guess if we like had taken out, it would be about even with like Dubsado, about 20 some percent would say of services would say they don't use one. But I cannot fathom running my business without Honeybook or any CRM because I use the crap out of my CRM.
I do think if you run a project-based business, it's a need, not a want. It's tough because I mainly use Dubsado for our marketing agency and we customize every project. So for us, I'm updating the contract manually anyway. I'm updating the invoice manually anyway. But it is nice to have those email sequences, right? Which technically could have been like zapped to ConvertKit or something like that and whatever. Yeah, like there's a workaround, but especially for website design, for any sort of like build or project where it's not customized per opportunity, like a need, not a need. It's fascinating. And so for people that are in an operations space, like not only do we have some space to talk about CRM, the next one, task management, 24% don't have a project management. Now, I've noticed that you said you're one of those.
I am. I was going to say, I'm one of those people.
I don't get that part because I'm so disorganized. I need my Airtable more than I need like life in my like breath in my lungs. But wow, 24% don't have a task management or a project management software. Fascinating.
Yeah. What surprised me more is that even 15% of everybody said they don't have either.
Wow.
I'm like, you don't have a CRM or a task
Right,
management
right,
system? Like, how are
right.
you? Someone posted on Threads that they were shocked about that stat. And she goes, so we're just living off vibes? Is that what's happening?
I mean, because I can understand not using task management if you are really relying on Honeybook, because it kind of operates as that. I can make a case for that. To not have either, I'm just like, oh my God, like, where are you saving? I'm like, my lead tracker, my content management, my team to-do list, our client organization. I'm like, I don't know how you do. Also, Notion being second, like, okay, Notion, pop off.
Which I had like two or three people who messaged me and they were like, I do not consider Notion a task management software.
Disagree. Hard
They were
disagree.
like, which I was like, I don't use anything, so I can't argue.
Notion could be anything. Do you know what I mean? And I think if you're asking a
Right.
question about task management and Notion is there, then I would hope that they're answering the question that they use Notion for task management. But
Yes.
I mean, so many of the doers use Notion, so I guess I shouldn't be surprised by that. But I really thought ClickUp would be number one. ClickUp has been such a big,
I did too.
big proponent in the online space. And then honestly, I would have thought Asana would be next. I guess Asana and ClickUp are tied, but I'm an Airtable girly, so I'm glad that Trello's down there. I'm glad Monday's down there. Those two are like rough for me.
I do not like the design of Trello.
It's just too
that's
simple.
Why I can't use Trello.
Yeah, it's like too basic. I think it's good for truly just tasks. I don't think you could use it for like a robust business by any means, but fine for what it is. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. The 15% reported they don't have CRM and task management. It's just very interesting. And then you go into business marketing. This one, not shocking, but great to see. Do you know? 92%.
Yes.
Focused, like 92% use Instagram. And this is not like in contest with each other. It's saying 92% of people do use Instagram as a marketing channel.
Yes.
Yeah. 78%.
Yeah, because people could select every channel.
78% do use email. 50% use blog, which is way higher than I would have thought. 50% for Facebook was higher than I would have thought. 50% for Threads is higher than I would have thought.
Same.
But then lower for me that I thought was really interesting, YouTube, major opportunity there, paid ads, major opportunity, but also paid ads with 50,000 in revenue adds up.
It does. But I definitely I was like, we definitely have more opportunities with podcasts and YouTube. Sure. I thought those were both pretty low.
Yeah, podcast is low, 28%. I guess I would have maybe considered that to be like 40. Podcast is such a hot topic. We're on one right now, That one I
right.
thought that was fascinating. But even below this, you broke it out like each bracket of revenue and how many marketing channels they had. And it looks like across the board, people have 5 marketing channels. To me, that kind of means like marketing channels don't necessarily mean money. It's probably how you use it. But that was my interpretation. I'm wondering if you felt the same.
I also think because it does say like it kind of slightly goes up as with each revenue
That's true.
bracket.
It does go from like 4.5 to 5.5. So yeah, there is a little bit more at the higher.
It's not a huge difference. Like I kind of thought when I was doing that data, I was like, oh, I wonder if this is going to be like super different. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, I kind of figured it would be. I kind of seen like 1 to 3 in the lower revenue brackets and maybe like 5 to 8, maybe even like 7 as an average for the higher.
Yeah. And to me, I don't necessarily want people to look at this and be like, oh, okay, so if I want to make over $500,000, I need to be everywhere. Right. I don't think it's that. I mean, but look, like
if you have less than 50,000 in revenue, you still have multiple channels. To me, that's like seeing them like kind of range relatively around each other. To me does indicate like it's not necessarily going to contribute to the bottom line. To me, that's where I want to say like the copy's got to be right, the design's going to be right, and honestly like skim down. Like if you're in that less than 50, maybe you're spreading yourself too thin. I would say if you're in that less than $50,000 revenue bracket, we can disagree. This is just my perspective. Is like trim it down. Focus on email and social, like one social channel and email, and then later as you grow, as you get into different brackets, add one. But again, we can disagree. I don't think it's a right or wrong. It's just interpretation.
No, I would agree because I think there's also a difference between being on a platform and like being active and actually using it. So I am on quote unquote Facebook and LinkedIn. I would not consider them active marketing channels. I'm there. I check the notifications, but I'm not like If anything, I actually use a tool that automates the posts there. I'm not wasting my energy showing up on this platform that's not going to work for me.
That's why, people sometimes will be like, can you repurpose my reels to, we have a marketing agency, we do a lot of social media marketing. And at Dial Zero, the marketing agency, people will be like, can you repurpose my reels to TikTok? And I'm like, can we? Yeah. But that doesn't mean that you're engaging with the comments. It doesn't mean that you're reacting to things. It doesn't mean that you're reacting to trends. Like, that's not the same. I think that some places you can get away with it. I don't really think repurposing is as like helpful as people think it is. I think you really have to be active there.
Yeah. So I think it's better, especially if you're smaller, you don't have a team, like really just go all in on one or two platforms instead of spreading yourself thin. I think that's the better answer.
The next one here, number one lead source. I'm not shocked by this one. Pretty much split between Instagram and referrals. It is kind of interesting that the next one's SEO.
I mean, I love that.
Like, good for me. But also like major opportunity for you to be like, get on the train, like this 8%, we need to get that up. So, but the rest of it, I was like, this tracks. Pretty much everything's kind of split on the like less than 5%, email collabs, Facebook, Pinterest, etc. You did mention here, like Instagram appears to be a significant lead source, particularly for businesses 300,000 in revenue and above, which I thought was interesting. Referrals are also great for 100 to 300,000 revenue range. So for me, I think that kind of goes back to like, if you want to scale, focus on those two things. Create a strong referral network, focus on your Instagram, because those people that are in those higher brackets are saying that's where the money's coming from. They're probably focusing all their energy there, where I would say if you're in, if you're making less than 100 or less than 50, don't spread yourself too thin. It kind of reinforces that point.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that was interesting. To me, I wondered if referrals were most common in that 100 to 300, because that's where I feel like there's probably a lot of service based. And then if you're higher than that, maybe you have more membership products, that kind of thing. And so also you can do more paid ads and that kind of thing. And so I thought that was interesting. But I also thought it was interesting that referrals weren't the most popular for the small, like super small businesses that aren't making a ton. Just because I'm thinking back to when I first started and would have fallen into the like less than 50,000. And I was so, again, it was a different time online. I mean, it's not like it was that long ago, but it was back when Facebook groups were in their prime. And so I was so connected. I was kind of like how Threads feels now. I was talking to people all the time. So referrals felt like a little more prominent back then. I don't know. I'd actually have to like look at the data to see if it was in my business, but it just felt like referrals, because it's like, oh, I'm like this small little business owner. And so like every person I talk to is a connection, which it still is, but there's not as much noise in the business. You're not as busy. You can connect with more people. And so I thought that was interesting that it wasn't more prominent for the lower bracket.
It definitely is something you're right. Like I know at the beginning of mine, like referrals are how I made my money. Like I was definitely very active on social. I had way more time, but referrals were such a big thing for me at the beginning. So I do think that that's something that could be utilized. You even said here, this one was a conversation in the doers. 78% of business owners use email marketing. Great. We love to hear it. 78% use it. 4% noted as their number one lead source. That's wild. If you're an email marketer, like that is the best thing you could have heard, because you need to be helping some people convert an email. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. When I saw that difference, I was like, oh, we need some education. Like, which I saw somebody post on Threads, I think it was yesterday. There's a difference between newsletters and email marketing.
Correct.
And I think that's something that a lot of business owners need to think about more. It's not the same thing. And so I mean, I'll admit I'm not great at email marketing. And so I fall into that stat, but to see such a big difference, I was like, oh.
Yeah, I had fallen off my email game because we did a massive rebrand at the beginning of this year. Everything was very like blazer, buttoned up, minimalist. And I was like, I'm the girl who like rolls out of bed in her sweatpants and is like a messy bitch. Do you know what I mean? I was like, I need my branding to reflect who I am on these calls. Do you know what I'm saying? And so we did this massive rebrand. And I was like, in order for me to do this well, I have to take the pressure off of email. I'm just not going to do it for the first 3 months. I just need to be in the zone with the rebrand, which was amazing permission. And then I was out of email and I was like, I got to get back in. So we started this newsletter called Blinders. And it's very much like what I want people to know, a letter from me about my life, about what I'm up to, a little bit about, like different business insights we're seeing across multiple industries. And now that we're back in that game, I do feel comfortable diving back into email campaigns, let's call them, those one-off emails. And I'm grateful for the newsletter for being able to do that for me, because it does give you a little bit of accountability. I have to send it weekly. I have a formula that I follow, which is great. So for those of you who have newsletter, I would just encourage you maybe send one email a week, even if it's a personal email, a wrap up of some great posts you did that week, or like an educational takeaway. Here are 3 things that you can update on your website this week, whatever it is. So, for those of you who are listening who want to kind of like increase your email, like I make so much money from my email list, or I did in the past when I was like really leaning on it. It would have been number 2 for me for sure. Then we have AI. Do we use AI? Basically, I use AI, but only for myself, is about 40%. I use AI both for myself and my clients, another 30%. And then I do not use AI, another 30%. Here you said 60% of those who said they don't use AI are service-based business owners. I have a theory there that the service-based business owners don't want to use AI because they worry about like the ethics of the work that they're doing and whether or not they're able to use Midjourney for a website project or use ChatGPT to write copy for social or whatever it is. Do you share that with me, or do you have a different opinion?
I would agree. I think there's some kind of like fear about it. I also think one part is people are kind of like scared of AI and they're like, I don't, or like even just like, I'm not techie, I don't know really how to use it. Like I asked I have so many clients that I like bring up ChatGPT and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, what? I also think some of it is maybe this like, I'm taking a stance against AI because I don't like it's taking people's jobs and I'm not going to contribute to that.
We very loudly do not do that.
If that's you.
At Dial Zero, we tell people like we use AI and we tell them how it makes them money because we can do more. And at the end of the day, I always tell people like ChatGPT is a calculator. It doesn't make a mathematician, like it makes them more important. Can you digest the math that's right out of the machine? You know what I mean? And so for us, yes, we go into ChatGPT where we pay the premium and we have these profiles set up for their tone of voice, their style, a bit about the business. We can say, make a month of captions in this style. Here are 3 captions that we've written in the past, and it will churn everything out. And then instead of taking a week to do an entire month of copy for stories and reels and captions, etc., we just take a day to edit. And we'll tell people that you get more time with us. We're able to keep our prices low because we were able to optimize our time well. Nothing will go out the door that isn't looked at by a human, but we do use the machine. And there's also an account that we work with that was a rosé brand in France. And we were like, we don't have the money to go to Provence. So we went into Midjourney and made some really great AI images of the Provence region. We had like a cheese board next to a bottle of wine, and it was great. We used it for so much social content and told them that we were doing that, and they were pleased. Otherwise, we had to lean on like expensive photography, and they didn't have the money for that. And people could be like, yeah, but they should have paid a photographer. They weren't going to pay a photographer. That's the problem.
No. Yeah, I use AI with clients and I teach them how to use it as well. Great. Like I use it a lot for ideation, for like keyword ideas, topics, for SEO, like that kind of stuff. But then I still have to take that and go actually keyword research it. Like I always tell my clients, this doesn't actually know the SEO, it's just giving you ideas. But it makes it so much faster than me just sitting here being like, okay, so topics.
Yeah. Like, yeah. Like, let me just ideate off the top of my head. We're almost through this. Future of business, it says, are you growing at a good pace? 54% they're growing at a good pace. 40 say they're stagnant. That to me kind of is a little bit what I would have expected. People are growing at a steady pace, or they're kind of flatlining at the moment. Not flatlining like dead, but like, plateauing, not flatlining. Plateauing right now.
Yeah. I was happy to see those results. Like I was afraid this was going to be not that I actually thought it, but I was like, please don't show me that like everyone's
No,
declining.
I'll be honest, I did kind of
uh,
expect that, like declining, because there's a selection that says declining rapidly, declining slowly. I really kind of expected that declining slowly to be past 10%, maybe up to 20. So that makes me feel good. Like people are just chilling. They're just riding the wave right now, and that's okay. Looks like everybody wants to stay in business. 80% likely to stay in business for the next 5 years. That's great. The biggest business struggle here looks like scalability and not enough clients. Well, not enough clients is number one, 30%. And scalability. I think that what that tells me is that this is a great place for consultants, people who know how to increase sales for a business, to come in and say, like, let me audit, let me take a look at your pricing, let me take a look at your growth plan, let's make a growth plan, let's get you out of the work, let's bring on somebody who can support you. And then we see all the other stuff, marketing, work-life balance, burnout, cash flow, profit margins, competition. On the low end here, biggest business struggle, employees, chronic illness. Thankfully, I hope that people are well. Client communication, project management. So it does look like a lot of it is really, because we have work-life balance, burnout, mental health, cash flow. A lot of this is money and making sure that they can sustain it. And to me, that work-life balance and burnout is probably just the comparison. I can't give up a minute to hang out with my family because I have to keep up with the six-figure earners. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just needing to really take a look at the business and figure out what's working and what's not, and how can you be more efficient and more profitable. I think I see people getting caught up in like, well, I think I have to offer this. I'm a website designer. I do not offer website maintenance or website hosting. I don't host my clients' websites. This is almost like unheard of in the website world. I know of others that don't offer it, but there are so many who offer it, and I don't, because I have no interest in it. And just because it's what is common in my industry doesn't mean I have to do it. And so, so much of my time would be eaten up with doing that. And so I think really looking at your business and seeing what you need to
Totally.
change.
It's interesting because you say not enough clients is pretty consistent among all revenue brackets, but work-life balance is typically in the higher revenue brackets. To me, I would say that that's a business that has scaled and brought on contractors, maybe full-time team employees, and they aren't delegating enough still. That's kind of what I took away from that one. And then the next one is burnout and mental health appears across all, but is particularly noticed in the lowest and then highest brackets. So there, I also think, that burnout thing, I think it's comparison on one end, and I think it's how do I keep it up on the other end, right? I can't lose this, and I've never had this, right? On that low end, I'm sure that people are comparing themselves. Everybody's making $10,000 a day or $1,500 a minute or the Stripe. You know what I mean? Like, that's not me. I have to keep going. I have to keep going. And to me, I'm like, if you just slow down a little bit, you're going to go so much faster. And that burnout at the top, I think that there is a little bit of a break that happens in business when you hit that like 5 to 750,000 mark, where you have to get back involved almost a little bit as a business owner because the business breaks a bit. You almost feel like a new entrepreneur all over again. So I have definitely experienced that myself. But wow, how fascinating.
Yeah, I'm so glad I did this survey. I feel like I learned so much about the business world and just where people are at. And for me, it was kind of similar to what you were saying, permission, because I often feel like especially for as long as I've been in business, I run a very simple business. I don't have a big team. But I love how my business is set up and how it supports my life and everything. Even still, sometimes there are times where I get caught up in like, well, if I had an agency, maybe I'd make $1 million or, like
The business
whatever.
might.
And
I don't know about you.
but it was just like, oh, okay. So my perception of the online business world has somewhere along the line gotten a little distorted. Not everyone is a millionaire. We can still run these like solid profitable businesses without having to make $1 million. But I also felt kind of, I don't know if sad is like too dramatic of a word, but like seeing some of the data about how people are stuck at a certain revenue, they don't have help. Again, you don't even have to be aiming for $1 million, but I'm like, can we help move the needle? Like, I want to help you move the needle. Like, get some tools in your organization. Like, I really want people to get organized. Like, I'm not even a systems, like, I don't offer system setups, but I was like, I really need people to like start using
Well, and
something.
the other thing is like, what, the piece about me feeling like I have permission is, here's the thing, like going back to the sample size, I think 200 is a healthy sample size. I really like that it was 200. I think if it was less than 100, I might be like, I'll read it, but I don't know how it's going to apply to me. I like that it was 200. And for me, the takeaway is like, that may not be people in my audience, but how does it hurt me to talk as if that's them? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I want to test some verbiage because I do think if you have been talking and if you've built a community of people who follow you and you're posting every day, like I am, like I'm very, very, very involved in my marketing, specifically on Instagram, I do have a feeling like you guys have seen this a million times. And this does give me a bit of permission to be like, no, I'm saying it again. I'm saying it again. And I'm going back to the basics. I'm talking to you like you're a solopreneur, because some of these people started with me years ago and now they have full-time employees and they have big businesses and like, they're working with me privately, but they started as like, I'm only making 20 grand a year, 40 grand a year, or whatever it was. I see them and I'm like, oh, I have to talk to them. But I almost feel like what this said was, no, keep talking to the people that are still in those earlier stages. I think it's such a cool report, Jess. Phenomenal work.
Thanks. I really enjoyed it. And I am glad so many people have enjoyed it, but are also learning from it. And like you said in your membership, talking about like, oh, you should add this into your messaging. You need to like lean into this and teach that. And so I am just really glad that it like is not just something nice and pretty to look at. Like, okay, fun. I read some stuff, but actually can help inform and maybe help people try something new.
Totally.
So,
Yeah, I have it up
yeah.
here. Some people are like, oh my gosh, this is such a huge opportunity for a systems girly. And then somebody else says, like, so many people are hyper focused on Instagram. I focus on Pinterest, which means that I have to keep pushing my audience to think about multi-channel. Or like someone saying, oh my gosh, like this note about email marketing, I need to talk about this week. Someone else saying like, I need some more stats about it's like, and we're all like, ooh, I could do this and I could talk about this and I could talk about this. So if you see a lot of people referencing your study in the coming weeks, they might be in the doers.
I love it. Reference it. It's totally fine. I want to like, also please like tag me so I can like help share it, because then I'll be like, look, like this person's now teaching. Like, I would love to
totally
share, and especially you systems and email people. Like, I will help sing your praises because apparently we need the help. So,
Jess, what do we do to convince you to do this again in another year?
Oh, don't worry. I'm already planning it. I'm on it. At the bottom of the survey, at the results, the very, very bottom, maybe I should like put it up higher, like a second place. I said like to be notified about the 2025, like sign up here.
I'm literally, as we speak, I'm like adding my email on this recording, like right this second, because I'm like, I will not be missing out. And I want to be a part of it. The other thing is like, I know so many memberships. I have a membership. Tell us when you're running it again. I'm sure you could get even bigger sample size.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. We can get a bigger chunk next year, especially since so many people enjoyed it this year. I'm hoping that we can then like kind of capitalize on that.
You also inspired me because I did one in maybe 2022 where I said, if you don't do the work, how much do you think this should cost? If you do the work, how much does it cost? And I did it for every industry to show the discrepancy. Ooh. People don't know how much that costs. People don't know how much that costs. People think this is more expensive than it is. People think this is way less expensive than it is. So I'm like, I kind of want to do that again. Like, that was kind of fun,
That's a good one. Yeah. I had a few people say like, oh, it would be really interesting to know like XYZ. So I already created the form for next year and have added questions so I don't forget. So yeah, keep a lookout. It'll be
love it. So, and when you launch it again, I want you to come back on the podcast. We can talk about it.
Okay. We can do this again. We can nerd out.
I love it. I love it so much. I think that I don't like to make decisions without math. It's so nice to see the math. It's so nice to see that there is still such an audience that isn't at that 6-figure mark and maybe doesn't want one, or maybe is still trying to hit it. But it's just fascinating to see the differentiation, because it does allow people that, and this was another major conversation in the doers, it allows people to feel okay where they are. And I think you gave a lot of people a breath of fresh air, and I hope that you're proud of yourself for that.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, it gave me myself a breath of fresh air. So I'm glad that others are feeling the same way.
Absolutely.
So
cool. Yeah. All right. Well, Jess, I'm obviously obsessed with you now, but like, where can everybody else fall in love with you?
So I'm pretty easy to find, jesscreatives.com, and then pretty much almost every social media channel at Jess Creatives. I'm most active on Instagram and Threads, but you can find me pretty much anywhere.
Jess, thank you so much for doing this. I saw the report like earlier this week. We reached out yesterday. We set it up yesterday. We're recording today. Thank you so much for doing that.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, Jess, we'll talk to you soon. And to everybody listening, make sure to go follow Jess. Give us a comment or a like or a share your socials so that people can find out about The Unfiltered Entrepreneur. Make sure to rate and review us because that helps the podcast immensely. And we will catch you next time. Bye, guys.
Before we go, I'm inviting you on my mission to help female entrepreneurs, okay? I am a girl's girl, and I want to see every single one of you empowered, living your biggest and boldest life. And the easiest way for people to access free information and a community of like-minded women is by sharing this podcast. Leave a review on Apple, rate us on Spotify, but more than anything, if you liked this episode, please take a screenshot, share it to Instagram, and tag us so we know that you are loving the content, but also other people can see that you are an entrepreneur who is focused on her game. Now remember, the motto of the Team AP space is, it's not hard, it's new. And if nobody has told you this, I want you to remember, you've got this. Entrepreneurship is hard. I love you, I believe in you, and I am so grateful to be in service of you, whether free or paid. And until next time, stay focused, babes.